Welcome into the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by BetMGM. We got college baseball super regionals, which means Colin Wilson is here to join us. We promised you some mayhem, some chaos, some Cinderellas. I don't know if we banked on this many Cinderellas. We got Evansville as a 4 seed cashing their ticket, moving on to the super regionals, and count them, 5 3 seeds, Florida, K-State, Oregon, UConn, and West Virginia, all moving on to continue their dream of getting to Omaha. They're going to have to do it on the road. I'll kick it to you to get this started, Colin. You thought there would be some upsets. Did you
Mhm.
have any of these penciled in? I know that Florida was kind of an interesting pick. They had a ton of talent. But when you look at these other ones, UConn, let's start there. How did the Huskies get this done in the regionals?
Yeah, I mean, we'll start. Yeah, I guess with UConn, they have a pedigree. They won their regional in 2022. From a program history standpoint, you got to think when they're recruiting these kids coming up, it's like we've been here before. We've done this. Like this is nothing new for us to be an underdog from the Northeast and go down and play these teams in the South. And they proved that. And their pitching was excellent. Now they got some problems. And I'm going to say this for all these underdogs. Some of you have serious offensive problems, and that's going to it could get exposed. But if you can keep these games low scoring, then the underdogs are going to keep barking here. So UConn is one of those teams. They just always had the pedigree in the program. They pitched extremely well, and here they are in the supers.
To give this perspective, we use this comp plenty of times. The Super Regionals are like the Sweet 16 for March Madness. So of those 16 teams, 6 are either 3 or 4 seeds, which kind of equates to like a double-digit seed in March Madness, making it to the second weekend. That's how much mayhem we have. And it will be interesting to see if some of the chalk can take advantage of these fortuitous matchups. So we'll start at the very top with Tennessee, the #1 overall team in this tournament. They're taking on Evansville, who, as a 4 seed, they became just the 9th team at that number to get into the Super Regionals. 3 of the previous 8 made their way to Omaha. So it'll be a question to see if the Purple Aces can keep this magical run going. Odds makers don't believe that they can. Tennessee installed minus 1,400 to go ahead and win this series. Personally, just from a betting perspective, I like this series to be decided in 2 games. You can get that at minus 300. What's interesting there is you're not necessarily taking Tennessee to win in 2. You could also take Evansville, say, if they win the first game. So minus 300, I think, is far more palatable as a price. But as I mentioned, Evansville becoming just the 9th 4 seed to make it to the Super Regionals. And overall, they played so well in the Greenville Regional. They went 3-1, but they had a -3 run differential. And that's what's interesting about this. In college baseball, you can see some of these scores just run away from you. You can give up 10, 15, sometimes 20 runs in a regional and still win it. And I think that's the issue here for me getting behind the Purple Aces. Their pitching staff is 129th in ERA. When it goes bad, it goes really bad. And when you look at this Tennessee offense, they're arguably the most complete offense in all of college baseball. They bombed 12 homers in 3 games. Even their 9th hitter hit 2 home runs and had 4 ribbies in the closeout game of their regional. So there's no moment when you can take an exhale and figure we're going to pitch around this guy and focus in on this element of their lineup. They're bombing balls out of the ballpark top to bottom. Do you think the Vols have a free square here, or is this Evansville magic for real, in your opinion?
I don't think we're going to call anybody a free square at this point. If you made it here to this, to the Sweet 16, to the Super Regionals, then obviously you've done something well. Evansville is hungry and unconscious right now, and I do think there is a spot to bet them here. But I mean, it all has to be mathematically driven for me. When it comes to the series price, Tennessee is absolutely justified at being minus 800. I make it minus 770. And you think about what the Volunteers did over the weekend, plus 21 run differential at home. I've said this since we started this podcast months ago. Tennessee has a gear offensively that almost nobody can match. And once they start hitting bombs, it's really hard to catch up. And then you see a team like Arkansas. That's what happens when you don't have that gear. And Evansville has a gear to score runs. They average 8.1 runs per game. That's also balanced out with calculated base runs. And that is very decent compared to Tennessee, who is at 8.9 runs per game. So Evansville can keep up on the scoreboard, but it's the pitching where it really falls off. Evansville is going to be hot with Kenton Deaverman on their first night. That is their best chance to win a game. After that, Donovan Schultz does not match up with Drew Beam on Saturday in game 2 whatsoever. And then if there is a third game for some reason, if Evansville wins, Xander Sechrist would be a minus 500 favorite over Kevin Reed. So how do you play this number? Do you just take Evansville at the plus 400, whatever you can get to see if they can win this? Do you take maybe plus 1.5? Maybe they can get a game here. Tennessee, I think, this is the regional where if you're going to take a shot, it's going to be, and you're going to take a shot on the underdog, you're going to do it with their best pitcher. Their best pitcher is Kenton Deaverman. he does, balance this out. It should be down about minus 330 against the combination of Chris Stamos and AJ Causey. There's a lot of angles with this. I don't want to fly against Drew Beam on Saturday in game 2 whatsoever. And even if Kenton Deverman was pitching in game 1, Chris Stamos really, he comes in, he does like 1 inning. I don't know what's going on with AJ Causey, but like he's better out of the bullpen. He comes in and fires 5-6 innings and he looks like he's a starter. But for some reason, Tony Vitello says, nope, you're going to come out of the bullpen. But this is a better chance for Evansville to get a win. They're going to have their stud on the mound. And I price it at a place where I would expect to see plus 2.5, plus 3.5 on the run line. If you can get that, the best bet in this is not Evansville for the whole region. And not that Evansville might take a game, because you're not going to get that with Drew Beam. Take them game 1. Back Kenton Deverman, hit the run line. That's not available anywhere as we're recording this. I assume it won't be available until Friday morning. That's what I'll play.
Yeah, the fact that they gave up 36 runs in 4 games makes it a little bit too difficult to pull the trigger on them winning multiple games, even winning one outright. But I do like the run line action, as well as potential, a live number if they go down 2 or 3 early in that game, and you can get in that 4, 4.5, 5.5 range for a live number in terms of runs. That can be an interesting way to go about it. All right, we're going to look at the number 2 team.
Think about the psychology, Calabrese. Like if they lose on Friday and they have to face Drew Beam on Saturday, I mean, there's just going to be a lot of wind taken out of those sails. They show up on Friday, pumped to get to Knoxville. Like you're going to get their best effort with their stud on the mound. So the best bet easily is game 1.
Next in line, Kentucky, Oregon State, the Wildcats minus 140, but we have to give the flowers to Oregon State. Both teams from the state of Oregon out of the Pac-12 making it to super regionals, but focusing on the Beavers here, their offense finally came alive, 26 runs in 3 games. They beat a quality UC Irvine team twice, erased a big deficit early in the closeout game to get it done. Kentucky, meanwhile, after scaring game 1 against Western Michigan, looked masterful. 6-1 over Illinois, 5-0 against Indiana State. And I think that is the brand of baseball that they want to play. They want to be able to lean on their defense and be able to manufacture runs. They don't want to get into a beer league softball game by any stretch, because the Wildcats can pitch. Their bullpen can hold their own. They're 17th in fielding percentage. But much like Arkansas in the past weekend, this offense still worries me a little bit. They're sub 290 in terms of their overall team batting average, which puts them just around 100th in the country. They're 54th in slugging. So grinding out wins, it can get a little bit dicey. And I think if you're going to go ahead and lay the minus 140, it's not going to be a situation where you're going to cruise and have some sweat-free bets. It is going to be a little bit sweaty once you get to that bullpen. My question for you, are we sleeping on Oregon State? Because overall, their metrics look great, although they weren't playing their best baseball coming into the tournament. But overall, they're 9th in staff ERA, 11th in home runs, 10th in on-base percentage, and 8th in slugging. And Jacob Kamatz, he needed to be masterful. He just had a gem against UC Irvine. Does that put a little bit of wind in his sails after pitching 7 innings, 9 Ks, only 1 earned run? Are you a believer in the Beavers?
100% a believer in the Beavers. Dogs are barking early on this podcast. I like Oregon State to take this. I think the Beavers go to Omaha. Travis Mazzano is going to try to get it over the walls in TD Ameritrade. This is an offense that is capable of being better than Kentucky, which Kentucky's been dreadful in offense and spots, even in a regional where they dominated. I mean, their run differential is because of their bullpen and because of their starting staff. It has nothing to do with scoring 5-6 runs a game. It's pretty low. And then when you go and look at the numbers, Oregon State, 9.03 runs per game. Kentucky, 8 runs per game. And then when you go and look at things like starting pitcher ERAs, team ERA, team FIP, it's not bad for Kentucky. Oregon State's just a whole lot better. And when I came into this, I thought that this would be a coin flip. Then I did the math. I want to know what Aiden May is against Trey Poozer in game 1, which this region starts on Saturday. So I expect Poozer to get his 7 days of rest and be the first game starter. But Aiden May, I project minus 123 in the first game. After that, I've got Jacob Kamatz minus 123 against Dominic Niemann. And then if it goes to a game 3, I've got Eric Segura barely above Mason Moore at minus 112. That'd be a minus 108 there for Kentucky. But when you talk about that series price comes out to 56% in favor of Oregon State. That correlates to minus 125. That market out there, as we record this, is plus money. I've put it in the app. I've written it up. I have shed close to a dime. Beavers all the way here for me. I don't think Kentucky scores enough here. Oregon State can score at any time.
All right, let's see if you're interested in Oregon two-step here. Texas A&M hosting the Oregon Ducks. The Aggies minus 425 out on the market as of right now. The Aggies getting here by shutting out Grambling, outlasting Texas in extras, and they breezed past Louisiana in the closeout game 9-4. Meanwhile, Oregon looked very impressive in the Santa Barbara Regional. They beat San Diego in extras. They beat UCSB 2-1 and 3-0 to get to 3 wins. The staff is rounding into shape. They look like maybe they can, put the clamps on the Aggies offense a little bit. But the question here is very simple. The Ducks have a Prager-sized problem. He is an auto win at home for A&M, which raises the question, do you save R.J. Gordon? Maybe even go with a bullpen start in game one or whenever Prager pitches, because he's going to be, what, minus 1,000 in his start in this series?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many manager decisions that are going to have to be made here on the Oregon side. Kevin Sider is their game 3 starter. They might not even get a game 3 here. And Kevin Sider pitched a complete game, 9 innings, 1 earned run here in their regional to lock it up. I mean, just unconscious. Him and Jacob K-Mans, I think, combined for 16 innings of one run ball. I mean, the pitching right now has been pretty. I'm sorry, say that again. Kevin Sider and Grayson Grenzel, both of Oregon, were pitching unconscious. The problem is the hitting didn't come through out there on the West Coast. I don't expect the hitting to come through here. If you look at Oregon season-long numbers, 7-point runs per game. That's not even close to Texas A&M's 9. When you look at the bullpen FIP, the bullpen ERA, not even close. The numbers on Prager blow this out of the water. Like mathematically, Prager should be minus 1060, over 1,000 against RJ Gordon. So I don't know if you go full bullpen, throw in some low ERA guys, maybe that'll adjust it out, but still you're only getting 1-2 innings out of these guys. I mean, I can't justify when you put in RJ Gordon's numbers, which is what, a 4.8 ERA, a 6.2 xFIP, no good. I mean, there's a reason Prager's minus 1,000. And the reason I harp on that is because Justin Lampkin, I have projected minus 400 in game 2. And I have Kevin Sider getting beat by Shane Stow by a large margin in game 3. That makes Texas minus 975. And I think we said this before. Texas A&M is firing on all cylinders. The one thing that they've always lacked is balance in pitching and hitting. They have that. More importantly, Oregon just can't score enough here to get past Texas A&M at home. So, I mean, you're right, Calabrese. I think the only thing that they can do is chuck Kevin Sider from game 3, bring him into game 1, maybe go bullpen and give everybody an inning or two, because that's about the only managerial decision I can see for Oregon to steal one here against Ryan Prager.
It is interesting, the differential between sports. In football, you can never do that. You can never tell your team, we're not going to win this. Just go out there and, put up a half effort and let's just not get anybody injured. It doesn't work like that. But baseball, you can put a calf to slaughter and say, like, let's just basically chalk this one up as a loss and then try to throw our best arms in game 2 and game 3. Do you think psychologically that could be helpful to Oregon, where they play a little bit looser against Prager as opposed to feeling like somehow they have to slay this giant in game 1?
Yeah, I mean, from a psychological standpoint, you're going to go on the road, which Oregon, I believe, had a winning record on the road this year. But you're facing one of the best pitchers in college baseball, and if you don't get this game 1, it's the same thing. Like I said earlier, you're going to roll into game 2 with your backs behind the wall, especially if you eat up 6 pitchers in that game. So Oregon is some really tough sledding here. The number out there while we're recording is minus 400. I think. I can't remember many times in my life I've laid a minus 400 unless it was a game. It was like tennis, and I knew that this was absolutely there's an injury involved or something. But I think Texas A&M, for me, because Oregon is going to have to do something with their pitching staff, because they only average 7 runs per game. This is the favorite super regional spot where I would say Texas A&M minus 1.5 probably has some value.
All right, you're kicking the tires on some dogs. You already gave out one. Let's turn to one where I think the favorite is being discounted. I think they have a favorable price to potentially lay the minus 260, and that's UNC against West Virginia. North Carolina goes from, oh no, we drew LSU, to being gifted a West Virginia team that really had an easy road in Tucson. They upset Dallas Baptist, which was a quality win, but then they got 2 games against Grand Canyon to be able to get here to the Super Regionals, whereas UNC has to feel great about going through LSU, including a thrilling 4-3 win at home to get to Supers. At minus 260, this seems like a gift. Am I wrong? I was taking a glance at some of your projected numbers and the projected starting pitching matchups. I feel like they're going to have an advantage and a sizable one in every game.
Yeah, and there is a sizable advantage at all areas here. We're talking defense, offense, and pitching. North Carolina is absolutely from a mathematics standpoint, a huge favorite here. Minus 525 is the projection. You say, Colin, that's nowhere close to what the market is. The market, when I fired this morning, was minus 230, minus 250. I think I saw some 280s out there. Maybe it'll go up now. But let's look at these pitching matchups. Jason DeCaro, which we'll see if this is a place where he pitches. He went in and gave 2 innings in the last game against LSU in that barn burner of a game. And he also pitched the first game of that regional. So I'm not sure, 7 days rest, he should be okay. Or maybe, I guess he'll be on 4 days rest, 5 days rest. So I don't know if we're going to still have Jason DeCaro come in here or if they're going to push Shea Sprague up. But no matter what combination we get, I got Jason DeCaro minus 220 against Derek Clark. Derek Clark was absolute fire in the regional for West Virginia. Very much underestimated what the Mountaineers can do. They were kind of sleepwalking down the end of the schedule. So I didn't really put it together. Derek Clark would be firing the way he did in the regionals, but I still have Jason DeCaro minus 200, 220. I have Shea Sprague minus 310 over Tyler Switolski. And then if it goes to a game 3, I got the battle of the Aidens here. I've got Aiden Ho of North Carolina minus 350 over Aiden Major for West Virginia. So when you put 350, 320, and minus 220 all together, it's a series price of minus 525. There's just not a window here to get inside the Tar Heels and mess with them. And, when you go to the runs per game, North Carolina, this is one of our offenses that we can trust. 9 runs per game. When you go to West Virginia, this is an offense that we can't trust. 6.7 runs per game. West Virginia and UConn, which we already mentioned, they both, and Oregon for that matter, they all follow the same pattern. I need the scoring to be 5 runs or less, and I need my bullpen to take us home. That's not going to work for all of them. And I'm sure there'll be an upset. Somebody can pull it off 2 out of 3, but I'm telling you, these teams that average 9 runs per game or more, locking them down to 4 or 5 runs in a game is just a massive undertaking, like MVP type shit. So I would be shocked if the North Carolina sticks don't fire off. I'd be shocked if their defense lets them down. I'd be shocked if their pitching lets them down. I think the only thing that there's an area of concern is if DeCaro is fresh because he pitched those extra 2 innings against LSU on Monday. So that's the one thing I keep my eyes on. But other than that, I think you can fire on North Carolina freely.
I think I'm going to go ahead and parlay North Carolina and A&M together. I'll see what the parlay spits out there, but I feel very strongly about those 2 matchups and potentially just winning in 2 games and moving on to Omaha right away without having to mess with the game 3. All right, let's get back to some dogs with some bite. And the Florida Gators, we tried to warn you about them. They were a preseason top 3 team. They snuck into the tournament. They're going down to Clemson. Clemson minus 165 here. What's interesting about Florida is that their pitching staff got it together, which I did not see coming. They held Nebraska to 2 runs, and then needing 2 straight wins on Oklahoma State's home diamond, which historically has been a launching pad, they hold the Pokes to 4 runs in those 2 games, winning 5-2 and 4-2. So when you basically weigh that and the momentum that they have and finally getting something from the staff and not relying just on their lineup to be able to win in high-scoring games, are you leaning with the Gators or do you favor your numbers? Because when I was looking there, I saw that you believe that Clemson is going to win this series about 70% of the time. Is this a pass for you then? Is it kind of falling in that dead area, or are you going to ride with the SEC team over an ACC program?
Not a pass. Not a pass. And I'll whisper this once and we will never say it again. If I was going to make a bet on who wins bracket 1, bracket 2, I might have laid 125 to 1 on Florida beating North Carolina. So that's my Chipotle meal. I didn't have it. I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I have a little ticket on Florida to beat North Carolina in the finals. That's how confident. We did this a week ago for the regionals, and the statement was the mathematics say Oklahoma State, but the betting gut. I mean, that part of you that is staring at college football lines on Monday, Tuesday, before the market shapes, before everybody says what they're betting, and before you're listening to outside noise, something in my betting gut said Florida is about to go on a massive run here. They did. On this podcast, I believe I termed them dead because of their pitching. Now, at the time, Pierce Coppola was getting wailed on. Liam Peterson was on the back of a milk carton. We hadn't even seen him pitch in like 3 weeks, right? So at the time that we made the statement we think Florida is done, I believe they were A, sub 500, and B, the pitchers that are pitching for them now weren't even there. They're there. Liam Peterson is going to be the game 1 starter. He was fantastic in regionals. He comes in here, but I expect him to be an underdog. I think Tristan Smith will be about minus 150. But where does, and I'll say this and then we'll shove it aside and I'll never say it again. If you do the mathematics on this, pitchers series price should be Clemson minus 225. but I'm going a different route here. Jack Caglione pitching on game 2 is not only must-watch TV, but the reason why I think you don't find the probability in this through 3 games. I think this is a series where you look at 2 games. Because if you don't get that Jack Caglione game in game 2, it's over. You have to have him. He is your MVP. He is the Shohei Ohtani of college baseball. He is going to get into that box against Clemson pitching specifically. Now think about this. This is what's going to happen in game 2. Jack Caglione is going to get into the box and stare at freshman pitcher Aiden Canuck, who has been excellent all season, but he's a freshman. And he's going to be staring at the Shohei Ohtani of college baseball. Then that Shohei Ohtani of college baseball gets to take the mound in game 2 and pitch against him. There's so much pressure on this 18-year-old Aiden Canuck going in this game. The numbers, if you take out game 3 and the horrible year-long statistics of Pierce Coppolo of Florida going up against Ethan Dart in game 3, if you take that out, Clemson's minus 150 to win this regional in 2 games. I'm going to say I will fire on Florida to win this. At plus 150, I think, is where you should buy it. I saw a plus 162 out there, one of our favorite national shops. I'm sure Clemson will get some money here. I'm riding with Florida. The mathematics, I believe, are broken for a team that has the #1 strength of schedule. And I would love to sit down with anybody that combs through data, anybody that's in quantitative analytics. Come and talk to me about these teams like Florida, where you play the #1 strength of schedule and you have a team full of freshman and sophomore pitchers that have no experience. And then all of a sudden they're firing hot right now. You just can't put them in the same model as everybody else. Florida plus 150 is the buying point. We're putting our money on Jack Caglione throwing game 2 against a freshman pitcher in Aiden Canuck. And if they win this, they're going to make a run in Omaha. So count me in, Florida, all the way here.
All right. If you think the math was broken in that matchup, and I agree with you, I think Florida still is the way to go because of how well their pitching staff is rounded into shape, seemingly kind of out of nowhere. Looking at Georgia, NC State, this one I refreshed the browser about 3 times because I was confused that the Bulldogs on their home field, which they're 32-5 at Foley Field, minus 150 in this series against the Wolfpack. I'll go ahead and take it. And then when I opened up your spreadsheet, the implied probability, when you look at the pitching matchups, you have them closer to minus 600, minus 625. Whether Colton Smith pitches on Saturday or Sunday, he's going to go off at minus 400. And then when you look at the other matchups in this series, in a lot of cases, it's going to be Georgia minus 275, minus 300, minus 325. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on because I know, having watched a lot of Bulldog baseball this year, their offense is electric. They're 2nd in home runs, 3rd in slugging, 5th in on-base percentage. And they have a lineup that features 5 hitters that hit above 300. And this lineup helped them secure come-from-behind victories in the regionals. I think there was a bit of this energy where they needed to prove it. They needed to say that the stage wasn't too big. Clearly, if they had lost to Army in game 1, that would have been a fraud alert moment. But they come back, they win. They do the same thing to Georgia Tech in an in-state battle that they absolutely needed. They score in, I think, the 7th, 8th, and then, they score in extras to win that one. And then when I dig into NC State's pitching staff, I think they're in big trouble because you look at where they are, 168th in the ERA. They issue far too many walks. They're 189th. You don't want to put extra guys on the base paths with all of these power hitters for the Bulldogs, including the SEC Player of the Year, probably National Player of the Year. And then their ace, Sam Highfill, since April 1st, his ERA is 7.13. What is going on with this number? Try to speak some sanity to me on this because I just feel like this is a 50%, 75% discount on what it should be.
Yeah, and if you I think what's also shocked me is that overnight, from Tuesday to now Wednesday, since we recorded this, the line has moved 20 cents in the way of NC State. This is baseball. This isn't football. It's not like I need to check on the quarterback. I need to see if the offensive linemen have diarrhea. Like right. I mean, this is a full baseball team, right? There's not like one injury that you can take out. Like you can even take Charlie Condon out and that offense is still bangers, right? I mean, Colby Branch is probably hitting a grand slam while you and I are talking about this. From a season-long perspective, NC State's numbers are just not there. Now, they looked excellent in this regional. They went up against Bryant, South Carolina, James Madison. They trailed 1 inning out of 27 innings played in Raleigh. That's insane. And that includes South Carolina, a team that I really like. So you have to figure, tell me about the team bullpen. Well, they're pretty bad. Both teams are above 5.6 ERA and xFIP when it comes to a team bullpen. and going after each other, because this game's, this series is going to have bullpen play, and that's where it's going to be determined who wins, who has the best offense. So let me just get to that. Considering the bullpens are trash, who has the best offense in this super regional? Georgia. It's not even close. I mean, I don't know if somebody's sick. I don't know if the team has a flu bug. I don't know why it moved 20 cents the other way, but Georgia averages more than 9 runs per game, 9.7 runs per game, excuse me. And NC State's is 7.6. It's not even close. It's more than 2 runs per game. And that's what leads into these numbers. Leighton Finley, minus 320 in game 1 over Sam Highfield. Colton Smith, minus 405 against Dom Fraton. And then if it goes to game 3, minus 262 for Zachary Harris against Logan Whitaker. The complete contrast and offensive output for the entire season dictates you're playing Georgia. The pitching difference in the starters versus says that you're taking Georgia. The number should be Georgia minus 625. You're definitely laying Georgia. You're definitely playing at minus 150. You're playing it at minus 130 if you found the one that I did out there at a national book. I don't understand what's going on. If this is not clipping, say, minus 200, minus 250 by the time we get first pitch, I would be searching for injury information, because it should not be this low to me. And I don't say this often. I think this number is a mistake.
All right, on to the next series. Florida State hosting UConn down in Tallahassee. The Noles minus 330 here. FSU cruised. They beat Stetson 7-2, 5-2 over UCF, and then in the second matchup with the Knights, 12-4 in a laugher. So UConn, bit of a darling here, although, as you mentioned at the top, they've been here before in 2022. Can they make some noise here? Because they upset Duke, which surprised me, then Oklahoma again in a 7-1 romp in Norman. So that certainly has to help them build their confidence. I have a few questions in terms of their offense, because when I look at these numbers, I figure they need to be in lower scoring games, and Florida State isn't necessarily the team you want to draw to be able to grind out those kind of wins, because they certainly do not have the pop in their lineup if this turns into a 7, 8, 9, 10 run affair kind of series. So is there only one path to victory for the Huskies, or do they have multiple outs in your opinion?
There's only one path to victory. I don't think they have it in them offensively. 6.6 runs per game on the entire season. The offense struggles. Considering the level of competition that they play, you could say you should have it higher. And then I know the arguments that come out of people that back the Big East and the Northeast and all the teams up there. Well, we don't have good enough weather until May to even actually get a real offensive game going. I get it. You played your entire schedule at 48 degrees with mist and crappy weather. I get it. Build a dome. So the thing is, I mean, when you look at it from that perspective, if you go down like UConn's schedule, like when did they bust out and throw a 15 spot on somebody? Like I can't find it. So I'm not sure if they offensively have it in them. Now, do I like Stephen Quigley and Ian Cook? I will say this. The number is astronomically high, just like Texas A&M. Florida State projects out to be minus 875. And that's because in the 2 games that Jamie Arnold is not pitching for Florida State, I project Carson Dorsey and Connor Whitaker to be minus 300 or better. So that makes a huge series price. Something about UConn makes me nervous. Is it the pedigree? Is it the program history? Are they playing unconscious? Is Florida State potentially overlooking them? Something about this number makes me a little bit nervous. Now it's steaming and Florida State's heading in the direction that you want if you want to buy it. I think UConn is pesky enough to take a game here. I absolutely think they're pesky enough to take a game. So you could buy the series price. The math says that you should, but I would put a warning label on this super regional completely, because UConn's just, they've been here before. They've done it before. Numbers don't match. Didn't match before, and they still won. So we'll see what they can do here.
I'm going to go to the Action Network's utility closet, see if I can find you a horn to toot, because K-State has made their way to the Super Regionals, and you brought them up a few times during our podcasting earlier this season, saying that if everything broke right, if they got healthy, some magic could happen. Well, here they are against Virginia. The Wahoos minus 230 in this series. They beat Penn 4-2, Mississippi State twice, 5-4, and then 9-2. But K-State, in my opinion, looked far more impressive. They dropped 19 on La Tech. Then they upset Arkansas 7-6, and then they drill SEMO 7-2 to punch their ticket. Can they keep it going? And do you think that Virginia is at all undervalued based on the fact that your numbers suggest they should be in the minus 400, minus 450 range, whereas they're minus 230? Walk us through some of the pitching matchups and how your numbers got there.
Yeah, because obviously, if you take Kansas, this is another 3 seed where the stats as a whole on the season make this number inflated for the home favorite. We got Joe Savino going in game one against Owen Barema of Kansas State. That's a minus 320 for Virginia. Then you get to the big one, the Evan Blanco for Virginia against Jackson Wentworth. If you don't know that name, Jackson Wentworth, he was the closer here, but he could go 3 innings. So they converted him into a starter like 6 weeks ago, and he's been absolutely fire. Not to mention their closer, Tyson Neighbors, he also goes like 3 innings, and he pitches every day. So when you got guys like Jackson Wentworth and Tyson Neighbors that are lights out and they can pitch at any time and they can pitch at any inning, it makes it really hard mathematically to project what Kansas State is going to do. And then you look at that 6.3 runs per game for Kansas State. It's like, I just saw you guys put up what, 19 on La Tech. So anyways, Evan Blanco minus 250 in game two for Virginia against Jackson Wentworth. And then if it goes game three, Josh Wintrow would take on Virginia's Jay Woolfolk. Virginia would be favored by minus 250. So you have two minus 250s and a 320, which comes up to a series price of minus 430, 82% chance of Virginia winning. So how do we make a case for Kansas State to put up a fight here? Because 6.3 runs per game. Arguably, I would say they got a regional host that was the most ready to bow out. I think I've been barking about what Arkansas had been doing for a while, but I don't want to discount what Kansas State is doing. At the same time, they're going to a place at Disharoon Park where you have to be able to score 8-9 runs a game. And I know there were some low scoring games going on in the regional, but it generally is a place. Virginia averages 9.7 runs per game. That's the second highest, I think, of all regional teams. Their offense can absolutely get it going. And then, both of these bullpens are about the same. I see 5.4 to 5.6 and staff ERAs. I know the number says Virginia should be bet on here, and I know the place is a launch pad. I'm more interested in taking maybe Kansas State as a +1.5, maybe taking them when Jackson Wentworth pitches in game two, maybe taking the run line with Jackson Wentworth. So even though I think Virginia is the play, and I think mathematically the number is not even caught up, the market's not even caught up to where they should be, Kansas State is going to steal one here. I would play a +1.5 on Kansas State.
Now, stepping back, this is a good moment to kind of reset the table. We go from 64 teams down to 16, and that obviously resets the futures market as well. Talk to me about the very top, because right now you look at it: Tennessee 3-1, A&M essentially 3-1, Florida State 11-2, North Carolina +650 as the top four teams. And then the bottom five, you have Oregon at 45-1. It balloons all the way up to Evansville at 300-1. Is there any dog at the back of the pack that you think is mispriced and worthy of drawing a flyer on? Or is there a team that's kind of in the middle a bit? You have a Virginia, Clemson at 11-1, Oregon State 15-1 that you also think is mispriced? Or is just, have we all missed the boat on adding a future at this point, and we should just be considering series by series moving forward?
Yeah, if you pull out, you do a 10,000 level view of what the bracket looks like right now for Omaha, you don't want to be in bracket one. You don't want to be on that side that starts on Friday in Omaha, a week from Friday, which I think I'm going to be there. So if anybody wants to stop by TD Ameritrade and say hi, I'll be happily there to greet you. But you don't want to be on bracket one. That has Tennessee on one side of it, has North Carolina on the bottom. I wouldn't want to mess with either of those teams. I think both of those teams are the bracket final in bracket one. So if you're going to look for a future, I would go to the other side. And I've already said if Florida, is taking on Clemson, if they pop in, they're going to get matched up with the A&M Oregon winner, and they're going to get matched up with A&M. Now, what's Florida capable of right now? They played an entire SEC schedule. They managed a 500 record. There's no shame in that whatsoever. And then when you look at the top, I think Oregon State, again, this is like a bigger version of UConn. They have the pedigree, the program pedigree. I should know. They won a national championship against the Razorbacks in 2018. They've got the offense. They've got the pitching. They're deep in the staff. They're the ones I think that can make a deep run here. So if I was going to play a future here, I would consider Florida and I would consider Oregon State, just because I think the Georgia NC State winner, they're just, one team's got a problem hitting, one team's got a problem pitching long in the bullpen. So I think Oregon State and Florida are the two teams I'd want to take.
All right, we'll close out the pod here with a pointed question, one that was not on our rundown before the show. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Of all these teams, who do you think is going to be at the top of the Jello shot rankings when you're there in Omaha? Which fan base is quite literally hungry? I don't know if you eat Jello shots, drink them. I think it's somewhere in between. Who do you think takes the crown if their team makes it to Omaha, purchasing the most at Rocco's?
Well, our beloved editor, Pete Rudin, will be going with me. He's Iowa based. He'll be meeting me in Omaha. And we've decided that every time a team wins, we're going to go take that Jello shot and maybe film a little content. If I had to guess, I think we should. I mean, this is fun because I'm going to set odds on this too. I mean, I don't know how Calabrese. We are not going to set odds on that. I mean, like LSU was a shoe-in last year, right? I mean, if you're looking at drunken fan bases out of all this, are you really going to try to go up against Florida or Georgia? I mean, that's the cocktail party, right? So I have to put them at the very top if they make it. If I had to say who would be at the bottom, I would say UConn. I'm not sure how many fans they're going to draw. I think the entire city of Evansville would drive to Omaha. It's not that bad. So you can't say that they're low on the Jello shot list. After that, I mean, Florida State's going to bring a bag. NC State fans are so passionate about all their sports and the fact that they get to the top and they can never clinch in any sport. I think they'll be there to drink. But
West Virginia, I mean, they've been trained on moonshine for generations.
I tell you what, if there's a flaming couch outside TD Ameritrade when I get there, I'm going to change it and bet West Virginia to win it all, the whole thing, if there's a flaming couch. So I think you're right. I don't know if West Virginia is above Florida and Georgia, but they're up there.
For Colin Wilson, I'm Mike Calabrese. This has been BBOC covering the college baseball tournament on the way to Omaha for the College World Series. A programming note, next week, we got double barrel action early in the week on Tuesday. We're going to go ahead and preview my book, which comes out on June 10th, which is Legendary Bowl, Deciding College Football's GOAT. We're going to break down who has been the best college football team in the past 50 seasons. So going to debate that between Colin, Stuckey, and myself. And on Thursday, we're going to record early in the morning, hopefully get it up by midday on the East Coast, a full College World Series breakdown. The reason why we're doing it then is hopefully we have all the pitching matchups to be able to share with you as well. So not just who's going to win bracket 1, bracket 2, who's going to be the national champ, but also those situational spots, those pitching matchup head-to-head. And Colin is going to be our man in the spreadsheets on that one, bringing you every bit of statistical information. Whether you bet with your gut, whether you bet with the data, he's got you covered either way. All right, Colin, any final thoughts before we say goodbye to the audience?
See everybody in Omaha and get ready for massive rain delays and the most fun of the entire year. I've said this to everybody that I meet. I think the College Baseball World Series should be celebrated more than it is. I think it's one of the most not talked about spots on the calendar. When you get 8 fan bases into one single spot, it can get a little rowdy. And I've been to everything you can split in March Madness. Where do you get 8 fan bases in one spot? I think Omaha should be celebrated. It's a treasure, and I can't wait.
And a reminder to our audience that the reviews are the lifeblood of our show. It helps us spread the word, get more coverage for what we're doing. 5-star reviews are preferred. Obviously, go in, hit us with a 5-star review, subscribe, like, and if you go ahead and do that, I don't really care what you say. You can poke some fun at us. Arkansas flamed out of the tournament. You can take as many shots at Colin as you want. Doesn't matter if it's 5-star. You're going to be in the running for some Action Network swag from our illustrious producer, Matt Mitchell. And I'm happy to hand out more $10 futures. If you want to get Florida at 20-1, I'm happy to place that bet for you. So just go ahead and hit us up on Twitter. I'm over at East Breeze. You can find Colin. What is it? Colin underscore? Walk me through that.
At underscore Colin1.
All right, perfect. So hit either one of us up and leave a 5-star review, and we're happy to help you build some portfolio because college football, the NFL, it's right around the corner. You want to have some money in that account. All right, that's it for us. Thanks so much. And remember, next week, 2 episodes, so tune in then.